Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in this world, and welcome to episode 6 of StarFlower Journals podcast. Today I have with me the beautiful brothers Tomaz and Dan from Awakening Alchemy Retreat Centre, which is based in Scotland, Aberdeenshire, in a little place called Midmar, literally in the middle of nowhere in beautiful countryside where you can connect with nature, connect with the fae, and just find complete magic. So today this conversation is going to be based around their journey with regards to the Awakening Alchemy Retreat Centre, and individually the brothers have kindly agreed to come on and to speak about their journey, which will probably be shared with you all at some point this month. So, with that being said, you all know who I am. My name's Kerry, and I am now going to hand the stage over to our beautiful brothers to allow them to talk about their path and their journey. So, brothers, hello!
Hello, Kerry.
Hi, Kerry. How much time have you got? Do you have time until tomorrow, or?
Well, that's debatable. That's still life happens.
We could have a conversation about time. So, what is time? Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. Dan, how did we get here?
So, Kerry, do you want to know about our journey to on the way to starting up the retreat center? Is that?
Yeah. Let's talk about that, because you guys are going to come on individually and talk about your own path,
Sure.
your own journey to awakening and the consciousness as such. So I thought it would be really nice to branch, like how you guys got together, where that kind of took you, how the Awakening Alchemy Retreat Centre came together, and what's coming up for you with regards to being of service, with
Sure.
regards to your own journey, your own path, how that looks for you, the tools that you're navigating around certain obstacles that you're sitting with at this moment in time, that can maybe help beautiful souls out there that are maybe of service, that maybe are doing something similar as to what you are doing, and so that they can maybe resonate and find certain navigation tools that they could pull from and make their own.
That sounds really good. Well, if we rewind to 2020, so when the C word hit the fan, just before it, I was training at Alexander Technique Teacher Training School. And I was single at the time, and I was really interested in Tantra. And not the classical Tantra of India, but a more kind of modern interpretation that had been brought to the West. And it was all about harnessing the body's energy, the body's primal energy, sexual energy for personal transformation. And I was really interested in Tantra, and I signed up for a workshop. And I was really excited about doing the workshop, and then COVID happened, the lockdowns happened, everything was cancelled. I was very disappointed. And then the organizers said they were moving everything online. So I was like, well, I don't know quite how this is going to work. But when I joined the online community and did the seminars, this person was teaching a workshop on traditional Indian holistic medicine, which is called ayurveda. So I signed up for one of Thomas's workshops, and the rest is history, as they say. And
Didn't it start with a cold shower?
It did, yes. I was just getting to that bit. So I moved to London, and it turned out that the job I had accepted, which was a live-in carer for a lady with dementia, she was 5 minutes walk away from where Thomas lived. So it was this crazy coincidence. And then when I arrived at my new job, I had a bedroom where I was staying. And in the bedroom, it was totally empty except for this one bookmark. And it said, the role of the tantric lover is to make his partner as happy as possible. So I was thinking, the universe doesn't usually send me very blatant, loud clues, but I took that one. I thought that's quite obvious. So Thomas and I got together over the lockdowns, and Thomas introduced me to the weird and wonderful world of the fifth dimension and beyond. And I've never really looked back. And as part of the things I was learning with Thomas, I was experimenting with cold showers and cold therapy.
Yeah.
And one day in the shower, I just suddenly had this download. It was like, you are going to run a retreat center with Thomas, and it's going to look like this. I could see all the buildings, and I could see people, staying with us and doing therapies and treatments. And I was so excited. I put some clothes on first, but then I ran over to Thomas's place, and I was like, Thomas, listen, I've got something to share with you. I was sat down on the sofa, and Thomas, in his usual way, sat there and said, mm-hmm, uh-huh, mm-hmm, 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 mm-hmm. Do you realize quite how much work is involved in setting up a retreat center? And I was like, it's going to be fine. It's going to be great. Let's do it. Go on, let's do it. Let's do it. And Thomas was very grounded, and, he's got a whole life history of traveling around the world, setting up Ayurvedic clinics and retreats. So he knew what he was talking about. So I was the one who was very gung-ho about it. But then that was that. And we just let it kind of percolate and settle. And then both of us started to really feel this itch to move out of London. Mm-hmm. So Thomas, maybe you can talk about how that was for you.
Yeah. It was like, when, Carrie, when you're wearing a pair of shoes, mm-hmm. and those shoes start to wear out and they become too small and there are holes everywhere.
Yeah.
And you have to replace them. That was pretty much after 2022. When everybody came back, central London was really crazy, absolutely crazy. And the only thing I could feel of, I can't handle this chaos any longer for whatever reason. The time from 2020 until 22 was magical. It was the most fantastic time in central London. Honestly, the streets were quiet and all of that. Anyway, cutting a long story short, so decided to move. I was running a busy Ayurveda clinic in central London leading up to 2020. And then I had to find different ways of basically reinventing myself, as many of us had to do. So I started the online journey, and that's how I met Dan while I was teaching in Ayurveda workshop, Ayurveda and Tantra online. And then my plan, Carrie, was, because I was really quite stressed, quite exhausted about meeting the fast pace of London, meeting the financial commitment. Just to give you an example, I was paying at that time for one treatment room in the clinic in central London on Harley Street / Wimpole Street for one room.
Yeah.
With a receptionist who didn't even take the appointments, was just there to sort of manage my client. I was paying £4,500 for one room.
Wow.
per month. So, and I thought, I can't handle this. Plus my own flat in central London.
It's a lot of
Just
money.
to put things into perspective. And then I thought, you know what? I just want a quiet life. I'm just gonna, in quotation marks, semi-retire.
Sorry about that.
Semi-retire, to get everything online. And my plan was to just move in with my friend Sue. She had a beautiful little annex somewhere in Devon near the coast. And I thought, yeah, I can develop the online courses, my meditations and everything. So live a quiet life. That was the plan. So I moved out of London. I put my stuff in a truck, had it all delivered to Devon. And there was this beautiful, tiny little flat that Sue had as part of her home. And it was an annex with a tiny, tiny space above the kitchen, which was my bedroom, and I absolutely loved it. And me being me, I couldn't stop until everything was in the right place. So I spent 2 days unpacking crazy. What I could unpack, the rest was in storage. And then was happily living there for a couple of weeks. And then Sue said, actually, I've sold the house. Oops. Oh. So that was like, oh, what am I going to do now? So, and then, yeah, basically I had to find a place to live again. So moving out of London, then less than 4 weeks later, faced with the reality, actually, you have to move again. And then I will pass the ball on to Dan, how we ended up at Mali.
I just wanted to kind of add a little bit for your audience about just how magical this whole adventure was. I'm 50, just turned 50 this year, and Thomas is
35.
21, 35, slightly old, a little bit older than me. So, we've both been around the block a couple of times. So COVID was actually such a gift in many ways, at least for us two, because it almost forced us to reinvent ourselves. And, when you get to your 50s or thereabouts, it's quite frightening to totally redesign your life and turn it upside down. And there may be people in your audience who are being called to, as you say, be of service. And they might be a bit scared of letting go of jobs that they have, or, the way that their life is working. So at this time, we realized that the world was being turned upside down, and our world was being turned upside down. So we were faced with a choice, and that was go with it or resist it. And going with it has just been such an amazing adventure. And Thomas left London before me. I followed a couple of months later after Thomas found out he had to move again. And I went down to visit him. And then on the train on the way back, and it's quite a long journey from Southwest back up to London, I was on the apps where you can find a property to rent and all that. And this property came up, and it looked like a mansion out of a Jane Austen novel. I mean, it had like the Georgian windows and the portico, and you could just see
the piano.
You could see
the most amazing kitchen.
It just amazing looking, and you could imagine yourself pulling up in a horse-drawn carriage. And both Thomas and I are diehard romantics and just love that period of history. So I sent it to Thomas as a joke, and I said, why don't we rent this place? And what it was this old mansion that had been divided up into sections. So it would have been renting a section of this. I said, we can run retreats from here. Don't forget, we're going to be running a retreat centre together. And I kid you not, the rent for this enormous place was just slightly more than Thomas was paying for a one-bedroom flat in London. And it's just ridiculous, the prices in London. So I sent it to Thomas as a joke. And then the next day I phoned him up and I said, where are you? And he said, I'm at the estate agents. I said, what's going on? oh, I'm being shown around that property you sent me. So I nearly fell off my chair. And then he was wandering around doing a video tour of the place, and I just couldn't stop salivating. I was like, I don't care if we have to prostitute ourselves. We're moving into this place. And Thomas was like, keep your voice down. We have to pretend that we're not interested. But I couldn't hold it back. So we ended up moving into Marley House.
Which came with its own challenges already, because we had to jump through the loop of basically coming up with 6 months. 3 months or 6 months?
6 months
rent up front.
Because we were self-employed.
Yeah.
And we didn't have a track record. You know, if you're self-employed, it's so hard to rent places anyway. So
we jumped through that loop, and then we ended up living there, which was truly magical. It's a shame that you never were able to come.
We didn't know Kerry at the time,
yeah.
But that was the first incarnation of the retreat centre. It existed as an idea, and then finally it had physical form. The problem was that this place was essentially part of a retirement community, because the other people who were renting were all like average, 75 years old.
Ex-Marine officers and sort of army soldiers, yeah. You can get an idea of what it was.
They weren't used to people hugging trees and doing yoga on the lawn and you know, having an interest in that kind of thing. They were very nice and very English and very, I don't know, but let's just say they got a bit of a shock when 35 people turned up for our first retreat.
That was the first retreat that we organized. But in saying so, we have been extremely considerate. We made sure that there were no cars coming down, because imagine it had a big gate and then you had to drive through the woodland down into the property. And so we really did everything we could to ensure the least disruption. And yeah, it so happened we ran the retreat, cutting the long story short, fast forwarding. This was pretty much, so we were there 2021, so about a year later or something, July, June. So that's when we ran a retreat of 33 people that we had in the house. Of course, they didn't stay. We organized for them to be picked up, and we had a most amazing time. The house was big enough. It could have easily had hosted 100 people. It will give you an idea.
It was perfect for a retreat center. Just the neighbors just weren't, it was not the right energy.
So then basically after the retreat was over, I could already feel something is up, and basically they kicked us out. And even though our landlord, who at the time was living in Australia, and they were very much supportive of us, we got evicted, and they threatened the landlord that if they wouldn't kick us out, then there would be legal action against the landlords because of this event. Anyway, again, less than 2 years later, faced with the fact, packing up everything and moving. And then at that time, I really had enough. And I said, I just can't be and we had about 4 weeks, pretty much 5 weeks to get out of that place.
Yeah.
And then I thought, I can't be dealing with the fact. We just find an overnight winter kind of retreat place where we can just hibernate. And that was when we moved from Devon to Cornwall and ended up in a holiday-led.
We're lucky we didn't end up in the sea. We just keep going more and more southwest. And then, I think if things had continued, we would have ended up in a boat in the Atlantic somewhere. Yeah, I mean, essentially, we had to do that retreat at Marley House because it was almost like the awakening of Awakening Alchemy Retreat Centre. It was like a big bang that started the energy in motion, that then sent out ripples that have ended up in us arriving here eventually. And we will get to that point. It's just when you unpack this journey of barely 3 years, you realize just how much has happened. But that first retreat was so pivotal because that's where we met Joanne for the first time. JCK came all the way over from Australia to take part in the in the retreat. So we had JCK, Joanne, Thomas, myself, Monique, Rom, like a whole crew at the retreat. And Joanne and her family drove all the way down from Aberdeen. It was obviously something that was meant to happen. People traveled a long way to be part of it.
Mind you, it was just after 2022. So basically everybody has been locked in their houses.
Yeah,
for quite a while.
Yeah.
So,
and it was, I say energetically it put out a ripple, I think, because, I mean, if you looked at it on the surface, it didn't look like we were doing any practices at the retreat that were particularly way out there. We did like energetic activations, there was some sound healing, we did some guided meditations, a cacao ceremony, but 2 people had full-blown spiritual awakenings in the middle of the retreat, totally not expecting that. There was an impromptu exorcism that had to happen. That was really bizarre. Yeah, just totally mind-blowing. And for me, coming from totally not this background and only having met Thomas a year before, it was, shall we just say it was a real eye-opener. So anyway, we're in Cornwall in this tiny little farm.
We had 5 months to figure out what to do. Yeah. And the universe has got a fantastic way of how it teaches us our lessons.
Yes, this is what Kerry was asking. So, what have we been learning from all this?
The lesson was to completely sit in the not knowing at all, completely sit into trust. I remember there was this Christmas, I don't know how many years now, 2 years ago, not 3 years ago, 2 years ago. 2 years ago, Christmas, financially, we had no money at all. We couldn't even buy food at the time.
We were fasting.
One day on, one day off.
Thinking, I'm so healthy. It's not because I haven't got any money to buy any food.
Because, like I said before, my online business hasn't been developed. Dan has just come over, and basically we went through Mali's story, and we had bits and pieces in place. And then from there, we had 5 months to figure out. And then, believe it or not, 1 week before we were about to move out, 10 days, we didn't even know where to go because they opened up the place again for holiday season. So it was Easter coming up 2020.
The holiday cottage that we were renting.
Yeah, we were there or something. Yeah. And then about 10 days, we still didn't know what to do. And that was extremely stressful. I kept on saying to Dan, I have done this so much in my life. I just had enough of it. I just can't take it anymore. I was really angry and pissed off and upset and shouting and screaming internally and externally. But the universe works its own magic at its own pace. We looked literally, I felt we looked at every single property that fitted the criteria, from a 1-bedroom cottage to a 2-bedroom cottage to a tiny place in the middle of a country estate, anywhere in the country, in the UK, actually in England at the time. We got to the point of, oh yeah, fantastic. We are happy to have you as tenants. Last minute, the universe, no, this is not the right place.
Yeah.
So 3 seconds before 12 o'clock midnight, when the clock struck, we got this message from Joanne, and then she sent us 2 properties.
In Scotland?
In Scotland. And I said to Joanne, I'm not going to even look at those because it's like too much, it's too big. I want small, I want to retire.
I want to disappear from
the world.
Take me home to Venus. That's what you kept saying.
I kept saying, let me go home, back to Venus. So because we were really not knowing what to do, we looked at this property too and said, okay, I'm going to go have a look, and the video call. And with a very interrupted video, as you know, Kerry, here at the retreat place, we have got internet, but it's quite remote. So based on Joanne's video call, we went through the process, we applied, and we actually got the place. And within 7 days later, we found ourselves in our tiny little car called Herbie, silver little
what do you call him? A throat lozenge.
It
It looks about the same size as a throat lozenge, filled with crystals, no food, a few clothes. The rest was following in like a truck behind, a few days behind. So we arrived to a totally unfurnished, empty house. It was all cold, with 2 dog beds, which we
used as our table / sitting area.
And
we slept on the floor for about a week.
And then Joanne very kindly delivered us a food parcel of some coffee and some essentials, because we didn't even have knives and forks.
I didn't think about, because I thought, okay, we're going to move somewhere. There's a kitchen, but I didn't think about, oh gosh, you need spoons and forks and plates and cups. And no, we just ended up. But Joanne has been absolutely amazing to help us.
I think
feel at home from the moment we arrived here.
I've been reflecting on this story as we tell it. I suppose the themes that keep coming up are, okay, you can either choose to trust the process and sit with your fear, be with your fear. Don't turn away from it, don't deny it, but sit there in that not knowing. That's one choice, which obviously leads to some amazing things, because this place simply didn't exist less than 2 years ago. And the things that we've done here and that we've created out of nothing in the last 2 years would not have been possible if we hadn't trusted in that process. So that's one choice. The other choice is to just stay within your comfort zone. And I think there's also a time for staying within your comfort zone. I'm not making that wrong, but I'm just saying that for us, we got a call, you can call it a calling if you like, but we were being nudged in a certain direction. We just decided to go with it. And I certainly don't have any regrets.
Absolutely no regrets, absolutely not. But I envision my next phase of my life when I moved out
Your
of
40s.
Slightly differently, to put it that way. But you know, Kerry, we may think that this is what we want, and if we don't put the handbrakes on, the universe can show us something even more magical and beautiful, and if we allow it to flow. But it comes with a massive, massive lesson in many different ways. So here we are, 2024, Christmas, almost 2 years. March will be 2 years when we arrived in our.
What did you say the other day? Oh, it's December.
How did that happen?
Exactly.
Like,
we survived.
2024 has been an absolute whirlwind of lessons, and for me anyway, connecting to who I truly am, letting go of those fears, that trustful as such, but allowing that trustful and that fear that comes with the trustful. What I'm really curious about, and what you guys have like with regards to your journey and like the Awakening Alchemy Retreat Centre coming together, was the universe. You were talking about the universe and how the universe was showing you like many different signs, many different ways of getting to that point. So for our beautiful audience out there that may be listening to this today or watching this today, what do you mean by that? Because, you know, there may be a consciousness where people are watching this and they don't really understand what you mean by the universe showing me signs and the universe like bringing me to a certain path. So would you like to share your perspectives as to what that actually means? Like, how does the universe guide you?
Firstly, apologies if you can hear the washing machine in the background. We
No.
haven't planned this very well.
There's divine timing.
It's divine timing.
We need the washing machine to sort of spin our thoughts around.
That's what it is, yeah.
Everything happens for a reason. It's just perfect the way it is.
So the universe and the universe signs. Okay. As someone who has, up until a few years ago, really led, I suppose, what you might call quite a rational existence.
Mm-hmm.
I always had this feeling inside me that there was just more to life and more to the world and the universe than I could perceive, that I could see, more than I could see with my eyes, more than I could hear with my ears. And I think as I've gradually opened myself up to more possibilities and experienced more things through whatever meditation, plant medicine, tantra, whatever it is, I think what I've done is come to the realization that the universe is so big and so large that it's not possible for me, Dan, the identity, to comprehend it. It is so enormous and so intricate and so infinitely complex. I can experience it through my consciousness, but I cannot really understand it or comprehend it. So what that means to me is sometimes I see myself a bit like an ant on a table, and I'm looking around me and I think that the universe is like a flat piece of ground. But then if you were to zoom out, you'd be able to see, no, it's an ant on a table. So a being in the universe with a different perspective, a higher dimensional perspective, might look down and say, oh, yes, an ant on the table. But me being the ant, my experience of the universe is totally different. So what I'm trying to say is there is a much, 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 much bigger picture out there that is influencing my actions, influencing my life, influencing my direction, guiding me, if you like. And as a consciousness, I have a choice to follow those instincts and those impulses and those directions and those influences. I've not said that again, or not. That's where the free will comes in. But I think the bigger picture is there, whether I perceive it or not. And for me, that's the universe giving me signals or giving me a direction. It's something which is beyond my ken, if you like. Yeah. And I can choose to be in that flow or not. But I cannot necessarily change everything about it because I'm not aware of it, can't perceive it. Does that make sense, or have I just confused the subject even?
It makes perfect sense. I think you've described it beautifully, visually as well. So it gives people a better understanding of that perspective. If you zoom out, it's like another bigger picture. Like that ant on the table may perceive it a particular way. Let's say, for instance, that ant on the table is us, us as human. And we're just navigating through life. We're surviving. We are, finding certain things that work for us. And, you zoom out, the universe is like this energy that's constantly showing you certain things like, well, this is for you. But as you said, there's a choice with regards to that. And that choice is, are you going to follow that calling? Are you going to follow what you're feeling? Which brings me to the other question is, when it comes to that choice in following the calling, and sometimes you may not listen to that calling, would you say that regardless of whether you listen to that calling or not, the universe will always find another way to bring you back onto that path that you chose as a soul to fulfill? For instance, if you chose to be of service, if you go through life and you're like, no, like I'm not spiritual and I'm not energetically connected, etc., and you keep going through with like your eyes covered and you're not listening to your intuition, etc., would you say that the universe or the creator or the divine interferes and goes, no, this is what you chose, this is your path, regardless?
certainly seems that way, could be interpreted that way.
I think definitely it is, Kerry, because if you rewind, the nature of life is to grow, to expand, and to find ways of expansion and growth through the most difficult circumstances. Just look out, if you look at concrete, the concrete breaks and plants, tiny little plants push through the concrete. Basically, expansion and growth is the evolution of life. Life is there to evolve, to grow. And we as human beings in this physical form, within our multidimensionality, have got this, are linked and tuned into this innate calling of growing and expanding. So, however, the way of often how our logical mind works, we try to find ways of moving through it in the least, with most comfort. It's like, okay, yeah, I know this is my path, but I choose to ride in a Rolls Royce, or I choose to ride in a most comfortable car with luxury seats, you know. But the universe sometimes, or this force of life, requires us to actually sit and walk that path. Maybe sit in a tuk-tuk, sit on a tractor or a go-kart to go through that path. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that means what I'm trying to say is, yes, our path is set out, but how we navigate that path, sometimes we may have different ideas of how we want it to be. And that higher calling within ourselves, that connection to source, that fractal, when it's split off from source, that defines who we are in this now moment, now reality, going back lifetimes and lifetimes within all the different timelines and dimensions. That aspect often chooses the way of least resistance. But we know we can only grow, or the nature of growth is exponential if we choose, if a path presents itself that basically helps us to stay out of a comfort zone. I'll give you one example. It just popped in my head. Many lifetimes ago, I was sitting on a motorway driving in New Zealand to university, and I have been procrastinating in taking a decision for a month. And the decision was, am I majoring in acting or am I majoring in dance? I jumped between acting and dance and acting and dance. And one day, oh yeah, my decision is clear, I'm going to do acting. Next day, no, I want to do dance. So that day came where I had to take a decision. I was driving on the motorway and I said, I need a sign. I probably have received 1,000 signs, because we all receive those signs, like you have pointed out, Kerry, but we may not hear them and listen to them. And I vividly remember I was driving on the motorway and it was raining, and this big truck passed me and just cut me off and just navigated itself in front of me. I had to go on to brakes. And guess what was written on the back of the truck?
I have no idea.
That which you fear most has the greatest potential for growth.
Wow.
It was an advertisement on the back of the truck. I can't even tell you anymore what the advertisement was about. But I knew at that moment I had to do dance, because in my mind was like, oh, I'm too old. I can't move properly. And there's this whole trauma that is around my body, and having grown up being overweight and everything that came with it. So I knew I had to do dance because it put me in a situation where I was extremely uncomfortable. But the sheer potential of expansion and growth and learning has been just so, so rewarding. I guess what I'm trying to say here is the nature of life has mysterious ways to push us out of our comfort zone.
Whether you like it or
Whether you like it or not.
It can get really uncomfortable, like really uncomfortable. So would you say that, you know, from my perspective, from my experience, the less that I choose not to listen to particular things that are being shown in front of me, is that it gets extremely loud. It gets extremely louder until you go, oh, okay, let's do this. And then once you take that form and you start like trusting the signs that you're getting and, you know, getting really out of your comfort zone, it begins to flow. Would you say?
Yeah, 100%. There's another side to this, though. This is how magical this life is. If that's the case, what you have just described, that's wonderful. But there are moments in life where you have no response. The universe, the higher calling, no reaction, no response, and you are just moving around in darkness. You don't know what's going on, where you are going, no signs, no light, no direction. At least that has been my experience in life. So what that then asks of us is to purely rely on us, not to rely on the signs that present itself, but just rely on us that, okay, my only responsibility for now is to breathe. And I can breathe consciously through this fear that I'm sitting in, where I don't know black or white or night or dark or right or left or what am I doing? You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. So with that all being said, in your journey, you know, from London to Marley House to Devon, if I said that right, Devon,
Yeah.
and then, you know, up to Aberdeenshire and creating the Awakening Alchemy Retreat Centre, how would you say in this moment in time, from creating the Awakening Alchemy Retreat Centre, how would you say, you know, the universe is speaking to you now? How would you say the journey, like,
Now,
yeah, in this moment in time, like what's the journey been like for you since creating the Alchemy Awakening Retreat Centre? What's come on, you know, where's the universe taking you? And, you know, how are you feeling with regards to that? Because for me, being of service, it's allowing that trust. It's allowing, you know, things to come into play and listening to what's being shown, what's being presented to me, and following that and really trusting that regardless of how dark, regardless, like you said, Thomas, you know, going around in the dark, etc., and you're not sure like if you're taking the right path because you're not getting pure signs, if you know what I mean. Like, am I doing the right thing? Is this the right thing to do? Like, where's this coming from on a consciousness level? Am I doing it for this reason? Like, what's the purpose behind everything that I'm doing in this moment in time? Am I making sense?
Yeah. I guess for me, it's like the apple has to ripe on the tree. And then when the apple is ripe, it falls off. So by ripening on the tree, it requires a lot of nourishment, a lot of nutrients, and you need to sort of feed the soil with this particular nutrient. It needs sunlight, it needs attention, and that's a very delicate phase. But what I feel with regards to the retreat center, a lot of the groundwork, a lot of the hard work that we have put in by trotting around in the dark and following breadcrumbs here and there, I feel it is taking a turn to the better, to the positive, to more flow, because I hate this word, but it seems like we have, I'm not going to use it. Maybe I should. We have passed the test. Okay. We basically
passed a test.
We have passed a test. Right. So what that means is that within myself, being able to sit with some of those uncertainties, those fears, the fears of survival, which for me have been extremely prevalent, the fear of not being safe, because my entire life, literally, we can leave that for another time, has been moving around and sort of being pushed around, allowing myself to be pushed around. But what I'm trying to say here is, I think, to answer your question, we are at the place where we can see the fruit of our action. And that's really beautiful to witness. It doesn't mean that everything is like rosy and sunshine. It just gives us, I feel I'm in a much better place now to see things are in flow, things are moving. And this is not just because of my own personal journey, but it's also energetically, if you want to use the word astrology, cosmically, things are much more flowing in the direction where actions, where we help people, where we are of service to people, are being supported. That energy has shifted. So within our own personal struggles that we sit, there is an element of the energies around us. You would call it maybe collective consciousness that contributes to where we are at this point in time. And that seems to be moving in a direction of where those fruits, where the apples slowly falling off the tree, and we can enjoy the sweetness of the hard work that has gone into. Do I answer your question?
Yeah. Oh, you answered that beautifully. You mentioned tests.
Yes.
Okay, so what do you mean by...
It's very cliche-like. It's like there's so many cliche terms, tests. It's like...
But maybe there's truth.
So what would be another term? It's just...
They're choices in a way.
Challenges, perhaps?
Challenges. Yeah, challenges is a much
rather than tests.
Trust choices. Let's call them that.
Yeah.
Trust choices. It's a good way. So what do we mean by trust choices? What do we mean by challenges?
Well,
for that are listening to this.
To give you an example, one major learning for me, at least, has been I can't do everything by myself. As much as I want to control everything in my life, know everything, be able to predict everything, and do everything myself because it makes me feel good, it just ain't possible. And that isn't how big things, big projects that can help a lot of people, that's not how they happen. So this year especially has been a learning, let's call them learnings, shall we? This learning has been around community. And again, another cliche, but we're human beings, we're social animals. We live in community, we exist in community, we define ourselves based on community. And this place would not have been possible without the love and care and support of so many people. And you can call this a cliche too, but it's a physical reality. It's an energetic reality. It's a physical reality. Thomas and I would have gone totally batshit crazy without that support. I mean, certifiably insane, and not just borderline insane, because you probably have to be to do what we've done. But I know ballsy is the word. We're ballsy, not insane.
Yeah, that's better. I like
we're not insane. But I'll give you an example. Okay, so last winter was really hard, and we weren't yet properly established. We hadn't started doing B&B and that kind of thing, and monetarily we were in a big hole. And ultimately, I had to learn to swallow my pride and reach out to my younger brother and my older brother and work out some kind of financial deal with them and say to them, you know what, I really need a loan right now. I'll pay you back eventually when mum has eventually passed on and the house is sold. Whatever share I get, I will pay you back money from that. And so I had to put myself in such a vulnerable position, especially with my younger brother, because I'd grown up with him being the F up and always, you know, being in debt and needing to be bailed out. And he was the one who was always in trouble. And I was always the superior older brother who was like, why are you such an F up? Why do you cause so much trouble? So the universe switched roles and had me sit in his shoes. That was very humbling. And I was so blown away by how supportive and loving my brothers were and believing in what I was doing, believing in what we're doing here. That was a real, it's like a visceral sense of community. And I think if you're lucky enough to be in a network of people who do healing work or who are of service in some way and you support each other, it's something that it's something money can't buy. It's something that is so precious. So that's probably been the biggest learning for me of all, is really embracing and nurturing that community and seeing it as, what's the word? A means unto itself. What's the expression? So it's not, you don't do it simply because you want to get something out of it. You do it, but eventually you learn that being part of that community just feels good.
Yeah.
And that becomes part of the being of service. So that's been a massive, humbling lesson for me. I'm still a total control freak when it comes to doing stuff. But I know now when the universe is tapping on my shoulder saying, you can't do this, Dan. You can't do it by yourself. Ask for help. Ask for help. You may not be given it, but you have to at least be open to exploring that. Because that person may not be able to help you, but they may mention it to someone who mentions it to someone who mentions it to someone who then looks at your website and is like, oh, yes, I'd like to do a retreat, please. You have no idea how things are connected. It's so intricate. It's so complex. Yeah, so that would be my perspective on these lessons or trust choices or whatever wordage you want to use. That it's not easy. They're hard.
Yeah.
And they're for a reason.
They are there for a reason. And, you know, I really resonate with what you're saying there, because for myself, throughout this journey, I've, you know, found it really difficult to ask for help with anything, like, you know, with absolutely anything in my life. And more so this year, it's almost like it's okay to ask for help. It's like it's okay to reach out to that community. It's okay to reach out to your family. It's okay. And you know, I sat with, why don't I ask for help? And there's many beautiful souls out there that maybe are in that same position that, oh no, it doesn't feel right. I'll just do it myself. And it was that consciousness of, why do I feel that I have to do everything myself? Why do I feel that I can't reach out to family, to that community when I'm being of service, etc.? And I connected it back to my childhood, where I went into this survival, this like coping mechanism, which I adapted throughout my whole life. And it's almost like, well, they're not going to do it right. It's this form of control. So I may as well do it myself, because they're not going to do it the way that I want it to be done. So it's almost like you have to like look at all these different aspects in terms of what is help, where am I not asking for help when I should be asking for help. And the universe plays a part in this as well, if you know what I mean, because my understanding and what I've learned is that there's many energies out there that are willing and that are like wanting to help you. But how are they meant to help you? They can't just step in. There has
Yeah,
to be a choice within yourself that you reach out and say, here, I need help. I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed. I need help. And there's nothing wrong with that. So, like you said, it's like swallowing that pride. It's like, okay, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to let go of that old coping mechanism that I've adapted throughout my whole life. And I feel like
yeah,
majority of people that may watch or listen to this have this like coping mechanism where it's shameful to ask for help.
yeah.
It's shameful to talk about the situation that you're in at this moment in time. It's
Mm,
shameful to talk about lack, if you know what I mean. Like, because society portrays it that you have to be a certain way. Like, you're a failure if you don't have thousands in the bank. You're a failure if you don't like follow society norms. Like, big house, big fancy cars, two kids, married, etc. Like that's seen, just my perspective,
mm,
that are portrayed as a form of failure.
yeah. I think also what you said resonates with me, Kerry, about growing up feeling different and alone and feeling not the same as other people for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe many people in your audience had that experience, maybe not. But I think if you're someone who grows up and you're aware of energies, or you're aware of, you live a slightly fantastical life, even if it's just inside your own head, you think, you feel instinctively you're different from others, and therefore there's a fear around connecting with others. There's a fear around it showing your vulnerable self to other people, because you're not the same as them in some respects. So when you grow into adulthood, I think that compounds the problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, if I reach out to this person and ask for help, I'm going to have to explain why I use crystals as deodorant, or my tarot cards.
That's why you have got all those scratches. Now I know.
You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, whatever. So maybe that has something to do with it as well. But if people are watching your show, then they're already part of a community. So perhaps it's about then learning how to reach out, how to connect, what we can do to better support each other. What do you think, Kerry?
Thank you for that question. I love it when people question me as well. I feel that, yeah, it's if you're not used to asking for help, and if you're used to doing things on your own, it's, almost taking one big step in doing so. The more you do things that make you feel uncomfortable, the easier it becomes, and the more comfortable you do become by asking for, certain things to help you to be of service. For
Yeah,
instance, when this podcast started, I was like really nervous about asking souls to come on to the podcast, because there was like this frame of, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy of, these beautiful souls to share their wisdom and knowledge. And I had to sit with that as well. This journey brings you on so many different, avenues and paths where you really need to look at yourself. And I'm curious, like with regards to the Awakening Alchemy Retreat Centre, how much that, like you said, going inner. So for me, like you said, the going inner part of it, it's really looking at like certain things that could help you along your way of being service, and how to connect with that and how to provide that. Does that make sense? Maybe I've not answered your question. It's maybe in a roundabout
no,
way.
it does make total sense. Yeah. Did you have could you repeat the question to us, or what was it that you wanted us to reflect back on? The going inwards part.
The going inwards part, and like the fact that it's got you to this point in where you are in terms of service, because we've spoken about the Awakening Alchemy
Yeah.
Retreat Centre. So, you know, you've came up to Scotland, you've created the Awakening Alchemy Retreat Centre, and you're stepping into these services. So what was the journey with regards to that? You know, what does the Awakening Alchemy Retreat Centre do for beautiful souls that may be watching this? You know, what is it that you guys provide as a service and how that got you to this point?
This in itself has been a process. So, and what we are currently able to offer is pretty much, I'm speaking from myself now. And interestingly, I need to share this. I feel like sharing this. Throughout my entire life, I got onto this path more than 35 years ago because of my connection with Ayurveda, traditional Indian medicine. And at various stages in my life, I tried to move away from that. There were times where I felt like, oh, nobody really wants to know about what Ayurveda is, and I'm just going to change direction. So almost when we got here to the retreat center, I was using Ayurveda as an add-on. But I have come to realize that actually the big umbrella under which I operate all of my services is based on this holistic system of medicine, looking at lifestyle, nutrition, consciousness, taking into consideration Vedic astrology, everything that comes in to contact. And I already created a framework for that 25 years ago, when I, for myself, redefined what Ayurveda means for me in the sense of the 5 bodies of the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and energetic body. So to answer your question, what we offer here is an entry point for people to explore what aspect of their reality, their now reality, needs a little bit of help, a little bit of support, could do with some reshuffling, some redirection. And this is where I feel my guidance comes in. And by no means I've got it all figured out, but when people come and they have some physical problems, they go through some health challenges, I can take the physical aspect of Ayurveda to look at herbs, lifestyle, nutrition. If people feel emotionally under stress, I know to draw upon techniques from breathing practices to yogic techniques that can be used to help overcome any kind of emotional challenges. If the energies are low, frequency technologies. If the mind is playing up, working with the aspect of meditation. And then if people really want to go deep and explore what this reality is, what this universe is, the plant medicine in itself can be a fantastic way of actually diving in. So I guess what I'm saying is, I do feel now, I can put my hand on my heart and I can say, there's something here for everybody. There's an entry point for everybody. And this is not, and I had to sit with this, Kerry, for quite a while, sit with the fact of people say, oh, he is, what do you call it, a jack of all trades, but master of none. And I really felt uncomfortable with that because, yeah, there's the shamanic side, there's the meditation side, there's the physical side, the health side, the frequency side of it. And I felt like, oh my gosh, what am I actually doing? Until I came to the realization, actually, it's not true. The way of who I am is of my own personal journey. And my own personal journey started with Ayurveda. Ayurveda is the science of life. Everything that defines life and living falls under the umbrella. And what I bring into the mix is my own life experience, and everything can be summarized again within this umbrella of an ancient holistic healthcare system that has been around for thousands of years. So yeah, this is...
Yeah, it's so interesting that there's nothing new under the sun. I mean, the Vedic texts that talk about Ayurveda do go back thousands of years. And yet its teachings are still useful and true today. And within that umbrella, you can slot in things like cutting edge technology, like Healy or the mantra coil, or these energy frequency technologies, magnetic healing beds. They all have a place inside that one umbrella.
Because in the end is what we are doing is we focus on expansion. Here at Awakening Alchemy Retreat Centre, we do everything working towards expansion. And when you focus on expansion of consciousness, healing in whatever shape or form becomes just a byproduct, a natural byproduct. So very often people come to me personally with certain ailments, but these ailments are just a manifestation of a symptom. Whereas when you focus on expanding consciousness, on expanding on the awakening of deeper realities and dimensions of within our own existence, if you focus on that, then healing becomes a natural byproduct. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. So in terms of that and what you spoke about, if anybody were listening and watching at this moment in time and wanted to visit the Awakening Alchemy Retreat Centre and connect with you guys, like, how would they go about that? And what is it that you guys can provide anybody that's, you know, on their awakening journey, beginning their awakening journey, like many years down their awakening journey? Like, what is it that you do at the Awakening Alchemy Retreat Centre for those individuals? Because there may be beautiful souls that really like, oh, I really would like to visit you guys.
Well, as Thomas said, we try to have something for everyone. And the easiest thing to do is literally just to Google, and maybe you can check for me that this works, Kerry, is to Google ARC, AARC, Awakening Alchemy Retreat Centre. Even if you put in Alchemy Retreat Centre, Aberdeenshire, it will come up with our Google page, and then you'll be able to find the website and other links through that.
So people can come and they can experience any kind of, if they have any physical pain, working with what Dan's expertise is in the field of Alexander technique, and maybe he can share briefly what it is. We are doing cacao circles, we run meditation classes, we run personalized nutritional retreats, detox retreats. We work with sacred tobacco and plant medicines, working with herbs, for example, to use herbs as a consciousness expander. And I'm not talking about hallucinogenics here. I'm talking about learning the energetics of a plant that can help us understand or understand certain processes that we are currently going through. Or you can just simply come and enjoy a piece of cake and a cup of coffee and a sound bath, you know? As simple as that.
There's something for everyone. You don't have to, at this moment, be experiencing any kind of health challenges. You don't have to be. Everyone who comes is totally unique. And someone may come along and say, oh, I want to learn to meditate better. And then when they start meditation, it comes to light that maybe they've had some emotional trauma and they'd like to do some emotional healing. So we then might recommend doing a cacao ceremony, which is very healing for the heart energy. So everyone comes and they talk about their journey with us, essentially. And then we can figure out where it is we can support them and where they're headed next.
And what sets us apart from many, many retreat centers, and trust me, I've been around this path for quite a while, is
around the block,
and on the path. What sets us apart, I do believe, is what is unique is that we really provide individual services depending on the need, with the flexibility of modifying a program. We may have an idea that people want to come just to detoxify, but like Dan says, within this detoxification process, what happens if all of a sudden people are experiencing physical pain? So we are able to adjust that. And also, we are able to accommodate maximum 6 people at the retreat place. So that means small numbers of people. And I always find the smaller the groups, the more deeper you can go and the more profound the experiences can be. And I feel I can do justice to be there and to hold the space. If there are a lot of people, it's a different scenario.
Yeah, I like the Awakening Alchemy Retreat Centre is such a beautiful space that you brothers have created for everyone. And I myself have been very fortunate and had the opportunity to come and stay at the retreat centre and receive like your services, which has helped me beyond help in terms of, you know, my healing, my growth, my expansion. You know, we'll maybe have this conversation about that weekend where we delve deep into beautiful, you know, plant medicine and the energetics behind that and how, like, what that brought up for me. It was the grandfather medicine, if I remember correctly, Thomas. So, you know, that's helped me vastly on my journey, and you know, these certain tools that you offer, but also that beautiful space and that homely space and that safe space that you create where you come along, you can stay overnight, and you literally are so welcoming and you make it like their home. It's like a second home as such. But not only that, our beautiful Tomaz and Dan are masters in the kitchen. So I'm like talking about 5-star cuisine here. These guys will cook you a beautiful meal. So, and I know that you do like afternoon teas and you do like sound baths, you know, with these afternoon teas. So if there's anyone local watching here, I absolutely recommend you guys. You know,
Sorry, no, it's my turn.
Sorry.
it's okay. I absolutely recommend you guys hitting these guys up and, you know, going along. And not only that, these beautiful souls have space in the wall where they hold my art. Like if you want to go and see my
Yes.
art, for instance, it's at this Awakening Alchemy Retreat Centre in Midmar.
In a yoga room, otherwise known as the Kerry Art Gallery.
There you go. The Kerry Art Gallery is at the centre as well. So it's a beautiful space that you've created, and I'm very grateful and very fortunate to be part of that as such. I'm
You
actually
are
very
part of it.
honoured.
You're part of our community, Kerry, a very important part. And I think it's really coming to the fore for me that this idea of community is the key. Because in order to be able to deal with all of the paradoxes that come up if you're on the conscious path, or whatever you want to call it, if you're growing your awareness, there's so many paradoxes that come up, such as it may be that you can't go to a deep place inside yourself and face your pain without being by yourself.
Yeah.
And that can be terribly lonely. But then once you've been through that experience, maybe you need a community where you can share that experience for it to make sense for you to be able to integrate it. Or it could be the opposite way around. It could be that you can't experience the healing you need unless you're surrounded by a group who are showering you with love and attention and unconditional support. And then you need to go off by yourself to integrate.
Yeah.
But we need both. The whole journey is full of these paradoxes. And if we try and do everything by ourselves, it just takes that much longer and it's that much harder. So you're a very important part of our little community.
100%, Kerry. I'm so lucky to have you in the neighborhood.
Absolutely.
Thank you, brothers. Thank you. It's such a beautiful space that you've created. and being an observer and watching how you're navigating certain challenges that are coming up, or trust tests. Well, maybe not trust tests. What was it you called it? I can't remember what you
Trust choices.
trust choices. There you go. Trust choices. There's moments where you're like, oh my God, I just want to get off this boat. Like I
Yeah.
myself like feel the same sometimes. But then, you keep going and you keep like trudging forward and you keep providing these beautiful services and, keep going. That's literally all I can say. And everybody out there that's maybe watching this just now or listening that are like, oh God, I can't barst with this. It's such a head. I'm
Yeah.
gonna
Yeah.
swear a head fuck. Right?
Yeah.
Just keep going. Because as they said, the
Just
magic
keep breathing, I would say. Just keep breathing.
just keep breathing. Yeah, like Dory. Just keep swimming, just keep swimming.
Ah,
Exactly.
With that being said, we're kind of out of time at this moment, and I'm so grateful, and maybe get you back on to talk more about the retreat center because it's such a beautiful space and it's really important. Like you said, you don't have to just go to the retreat center. You've got your meditations like classes
Yep.
online. You've
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
ceremonies that's online as well. There's so many avenues of support that you're offering beautiful souls at this moment in time. So what would be your parting words of wisdom for anyone that's listening just now or watching? What parts of wisdom would you like to share?
Wow, what a responsibility. My goodness.
you go first.
If in doubt, delegate. That's my wisdom.
Don't delegate, okay? That's very straight to the point.
Ask for help.
Ask for help. Okay.
And not only, if it feels right, be in community, create community, and contribute to community.
If you are on crossroads and you feel like you don't know which direction to go, there's a simple measure that I find most of the time quite helpful if I remember it. Because when we go through our own challenges, we don't remember our own advices. I at least forget it. I need someone else like Dan to remind me. But if it makes your heart expand, if it makes your heart grow, then follow that. So whatever makes your heart expand, whatever makes your heart grow, that is the way forward. And that could also mean sometimes this expansion of feeling comes with a tiny bit of fear, which is like, oh, I really like that idea, but I'm not sure. As long as it brings joy, brings expansion to your heart space, follow it. Some people may call it intuition. Intuition is another big word that we can dissect at another time. But follow the heart. Wherever the heart expands, wherever joy is, follow your joy.
Follow your joy. Beautiful. Beautiful. Ask for help and follow your joy. Beautiful words of wisdom. Beautiful.
Thank you, Carrie, for giving us
No.
the opportunity to chat, and it's always wonderful. And we look forward to giving you a big booby hug very soon.
Yay! Okay, right. Okay, everyone, this is my thing. I give people booby hugs. Right, okay? Just in case, like, what the hell's a booby hug? It's just a heart-led, full of love, abundance booby hug.
Yeah. It's called a bosey up here, right?
It's a bosey, yeah. It's a bosey.
You give the most beautiful posies.
Booby hugs.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carrie, for your time and for asking us to come and chat.
Yeah, thank you for your time and your energy and coming to chat and, sharing your journey with us. And
Next time when you come, you can do a podcast and you can talk about your work because it's incredible, and people can have a live look of where the artwork, some of the artwork sits.
Yeah, that's a very good idea. That would be lovely. Yeah, let's get that organized, definitely. But let's get your individual journeys up first before we get that organized. I feel that that's important. you know,
Okay, Carrie.
Awakening Alchemy Retreat Centre. So it would be lovely just to share your own individual paths and your journeys and, you know, how that's, you know, carried you through life as such. Yes. Okay. So with that being said, this is the end of episode 6, and I look forward to sharing episode 7 with you all. May you all have a beautiful day of heaven on earth. Thank you for listening. Thank you for taking the time and watching if you've watched this podcast. And I bode you well. Okay,
Bye.
beautiful. Love you.
Bye.
Bye.